Welcome! Capella DataStudio is available for Mac and Windows. You can download the product from CapellaDataStudio.com. On Mac, unzip the downloaded file. Move the app to your local applications folder. On Windows, the downloaded file is the installable app. Capella DataStudio supports three types of connections: Capella Operational, Couchbase Server, and Capella Columnar. It supports versions Couchbase 7x and above. In this tutorial, we'll be connecting to all three. Let's begin with Capella Operational. Name the connection. Get the endpoint from the Connect tab from the Capella Operational UI. The user ID and password are the database credentials, which has been configured. The password is encrypted on disk. The cloud provider is for display purposes only. You can optionally tag the connection. Let's choose the development tag for this connection. Let's save this connection. You activate a connection by choosing it. Notice the app bar on top of the screen. It shows the active connection. The footer panel displays some connection details and metrics. As you can see, we have connected to a 3-node Capella cluster. Let's now connect to a Couchbase server cluster. I have a 2-node cluster running on my VMs. Let's name the connection. The endpoint is the IP address. The user ID and passwords are my Couchbase server login. As usual, the password is encrypted on disk. Choose SSL option for a secure connection over HTTPS. You will need the Couchbase cluster's root certificate for this. We'll ignore the SSL, since I do not have a certificate. I will, however, choose a tag. Again, choosing this connection activates it. Finally, let's connect to Capella Columnar. This time, the endpoint is the URL. Paste it here. The user ID and password is your Capella Columnar login credentials. The password is encrypted on disk. Let's choose a tag and complete the connection. Activate the connection. As you can see, I have a 4-node cluster. I have been using the built-in, default tags. You can, however, change the tag names anytime you want. You can have as many connections as you want, however, only one of them can be active at a time. The menu options also change, depending on the type of connection. Finally, notice the app bar on top. This will display the active connection. You can optionally install the Couchbase Data Tools plugin. This plugin is required only for Capella provisioned and Couchbase self-managed clusters, and if you want to import data, Data Tools plugin 7.6 is installed. Next, let's configure stores. Stores are required to hold backups and query favorites. There are two types of stores: local and cloud. You can have as many stores as you want. Let's configure the local store first. You can name it anything. Choose an empty folder. The subdirectories are automatically created. Next, let's configure a cloud store. Only AWS S3 buckets are supported. The name is the exact bucket name. You can get the access ID and secret key from the AWS console. The secret is encrypted on disk. Session token and endpoint are coming soon. Select your AWS region. Writable is coming soon. Save the store. DataStudio comes with the AWS S3 browser. This is a quick sanity check to see if you have configured the store properly. Now, let's take a look at databases. This is the same for Capella provisioned and self-managed. I'll choose the Capella cluster to show this. Clicking on the Databases option brings up this screen. The main panel displays a set of tabs and 3 tables for database, scope, and collection. The footer displays some properties and metrics for the chosen database. Use the tables by clicking on any database and any scope to display the collections within that scope. Let's choose Travel Sample and Inventory. You can now see the different collections and some metrics, including the number of documents. You are also setting the active database and scope. Check out the app bar. This is the only screen to set these. I have also set the active store from the store option on the navbar. Let's now check out the Documents view. Use the Documents tab. This displays a paginated table with the document key and a truncated value. Click on any row to display the full JSON document. You can also select any collection. Next, let's examine the GSI indexes. This view displays all the indexes associated with the active database and scope. To reiterate, check the app bar. The indexes are shown in a paginated, sortable, and filterable table. The footer shows the selected indexes' metrics and the node names they are deployed on. Instead of showing the index definitions, the table breaks this up into columns with the index name, key, and filter, and other additional information. This is particularly useful in index management. For example, you can sort the table. You can manage the columns displayed in the table. More importantly, you can filter for any particular value in any column. This is really useful in sorting out redundant indexes. Finally, the last used column is also useful to drop unused indexes. Let's proceed to the next tab, Schema. This shows a warning that the collections in the active scope do not have an attached schema. Schemas are nice to have when using the query workbench, and indeed, mandatory if you are planning on using Capella IQ, the AI assistant. So, back to Databases tab. Choose the scope, and click the Get Schemas button. Notice the check marks turning green. Navigate back to Schema tab. You can now see the schemas displayed. You can see a Add Info box at the bottom of each schema. This is very useful to provide any join hints, etc. to IQ. This concludes the Databases view. A dataset is a collection of zipped files with JSON or CSV data, along with a manifest file describing the data, the scope, and collections to be created, and, optionally, create index SQL statements. For this tutorial, I'll be loading the dataset into my self-managed cluster into an existing database. So, I'll have to set my active connection and database. The datasets view shows 3 tabs: Public, Local, and Cloud. A few sample datasets are available in our public cloud. The cards describe each. You can create similar datasets on your local store or your cloud store. The load process begins with clicking the dataset card. The confirmation box tells you where the data is going to be loaded. The load uses the installed Data Tools plugin. The notification bell icon is flagged at the start and end of the load process. You can also examine the logs screen. Once the data is loaded, you can click on the database and newly created scope. Quick tip: each time you click on any database or scope, the latest metrics are got from the server. Since metrics may lag, click on database and scope a few times. Notice the resident ratio change on the footer. You can get schemas by clicking the button. You can examine the documents, indexes, and schema. Notice that the indexes have been built. Let's now back up the newly created Couch Music on the VM's cluster to the local store. This is always a full backup. Make sure you have selected the local store, the VM's connection, and the database to be backed up. Click the Backup button. The process uses the Data Tools plugin. The confirmation box tells you the database being backed up. The notification bell icon is flagged at the start and end of the process. You can also examine the logs view. At the end of the process, the notification icon is flagged, and the activity log shows the output of the backup process. Now, let's navigate to the Backup Center. This lists all the available backups in the store. Backups are sorted by the database, aka bucket. Let's select the latest backup of Couch Music. The metadata panel shows information about each backup. We can now restore this backup. But where? For this, let's restore to a database on our Capella provisioned connection. So, let's choose the connection, and then the database. Note that the database name can be different from the source. Choosing the database sets the active database. Now, back to the Backup Center and restore. This time, we know it's going to restore to the active database. The Restore dialog box offers some options, but let's accept the default. As usual, the notification icon flags the start and end of the process. Examine the log to see the output of the restore command. Notice that the indexes have been automatically built. Back to databases. Clicking on the demo database shows the newly created scope, and that shows the collections. Click on Get Schema button to fetch the schemas. Let's complete the process by examining some documents, indexes, and the schema. This is a cool way to migrate a database from self-managed to Capella. Let's now import data into this database. First, let's create a scope and a collection. Choose the collection. We see the import icon. Clicking on the icon brings up the import dialog box. This allows us to select a JSON or CSV file. On selecting, the data panel displays one sample row in JSON format and the number of documents in the file. We could also optionally import an associated indexes file to automatically build indexes after the import. When importing, there are a couple of options in key generation: UUID or custom. Custom is a field value. Let's try that and start typing in the key generation expression. Notice the key in the doc panel. It will pick up the value from the doc. The dialog offers additional import options too. Let's exclude a couple of fields. Notice the sample doc changing. Proceed with the import. This process uses the Data Tools plugin. The notification icon flags the start and completion of the process. The Logs panel displays the import process output. On completion, click on Bucket and Scope. This refreshes the collection metrics, including the number of items. Quick note: while the import completes pretty fast, the metrics lag significantly, and so, you may have to wait and click on the scope a few times. The stats are fetched only on demand, that is, when you click the scope or database. On completion, you may get the schemas. You can examine the documents and schema for a quick sanity check. Let's now learn how to use the query workbench. First, let's choose the Capella connection, the travel sample database, and the inventory scope. Make sure the schemas are collected. As always, check out the context in the app bar. We have also set the local store as active. Navigate to Workbench. The side panel displays a sample doc, indexes, favorites, and schema for the active scope. Let's check out some sample docs. Check out the indexes, displayed as a DDL. Schemas, for convenience. Let's execute our first SQL. Make it pretty. Run the query. The results panel show the results set, and its status bar show details including runtime and memory consumed. The status bar also has icons for further actions. Let's start with the table view. The results set is now displayed as a paginated, sortable, and filterable table. Using this, you can not only sort columns, but also manage the display of the columns. Let's hide a couple of columns. Next, let's filter a column on a keyword. This is a really powerful tool to post-process the result set. Next, let's look at the result set as a chart. This is not a particularly good query. We'll see a better one later. Check out the query plan. The Index Advisor has no recommendations at this time. You could also favorite this query by clicking the heart icon. Let's fill in the title and description. I'll choose a tag for this query from the selector and save it. Where is it saved? In the active store, of course. Now, let's examine the Favorites tab in the side panel. I already have a few favorites in my store, all tagged. Check out our new favorite. Let's now execute a stored favorite. Clicking on it copies it to the query panel. Run this query. The result set is displayed on the results panel. Check out the table view. This query and result set are really good to demonstrate the chart view. The formats available currently are bar, line, and pie. Check out the query plan. The Index Advisor, this time, has flagged some recommendations. To optimize this query, the advisor is recommending a regular, as well as a covering index. Let's accept the regular index and build it right here. Acknowledge and confirm index creation. Let's run the same query again. This time, the Index Advisor did not flag anything. Let's check it out anyway. Yep, no recommendations. You can check out the query plan to see if it has used the newly built index. Now, let's configure the query workbench. The configurable runtime query settings include query timeout and also the maximum memory to be used per query. 0 for unlimited memory. In the Favorite Tags tab, you can rename the favorite tags. You can also export and import these tag names. Next, you can optionally set the IQ credentials. You need an account in Capella for this. Just an account, and that's free. Accept the default for Capella Cloud. The organization is the OID, and this you get from your Capella URL. The user ID and password is your Capella UI login. The password is encrypted on disk. Now that we have configured IQ, the Capella AI assistant, let's take it for a spin. I'll choose to display the sample document from the hotel collection. Let's ask IQ to generate a query recommending a hotel in Marina del Rey, with an overall user rating of 5 and above from reviewers. Now, overall is a field in the ratings array, which is nested in the review field. Let's see what IQ says. Looks good to me. Let's copy this to the query panel. Let's format this query. Run the query. Okay, we got the result set. Let's look at the table view. Uh-oh, this has returned duplicate rows. Back to IQ tab and continue the chat. Let's ask IQ what the issue is. Okay, IQ came back with an explanation and a modified query. Let's copy this to the query panel. Make it pretty. Run the query. Check out the table view. Perfect. Each time we continue the chat, the previous responses are sent to IQ. So, for a brand new chat, clear that chat. This time, let's ask for the cities we can fly out from San Francisco. IQ has suggested a join query. We can continue the chat to refine the query further. While doing this, a quick note. First, DataStudio sends only the schemas to IQ, not the data or sample doc. Second, the complete set of schemas for the scope are sent. Third, remember that you could also attach additional information on the schema to refine IQ response. Next, let's take a look at query history. This is also a paginated, sortable, filterable table. The table shows the query metrics, including the memory consumed. Filtering on the query column is really useful. Finally, here's something cool. IQ with self-managed. Let's choose the self-managed cluster. Select Travel Sample and Inventory. Get the schemas. Back to Query Workbench. Check the sample docs. Check the schemas. Move over to the Ask IQ tab. The same prompt to IQ as before. Copy the query. Format and run it. Check out the result set. The table view. Thanks for watching this presentation. Please do try out Capella DataStudio. Documentation is available on this site. Please do join the Couchbase forum and the Couchbase Discord channel. The links are here. We'd love to hear from you.